No.
So like I have to go to neurology in DC, but they don't communicate with Richmond. And it's really wild to me because it leads the opportunity then for literally depending on your location is a big factor in how good your care is.
Yeah.
It is.
Which is wild.
And, it's really good information for me because my middle son is currently in medical and has been for at least a year. And he's going through the med board process actually as we speak. So he's going to be having to see neurologists forever, on medication forever. And, literally just started this process. So it's one of those as a mom saying, you need to be there at BAS, all the time. You're the one who has to follow up because they're not going to do it for you. And sure enough, and the medication he takes messes up his mind, and he would forget things and so on and so forth. And it would be like after an appointment, I'd say, well, who was the doctor? Oh, I don't know. Well, did you get paperwork? Well, yeah, I just turned it in. And I'm like, I need copies of this because if something gets lost, you're in trouble. And and it took a while for him to really understand the importance of it, especially after hearing these stories from veterans saying, I went in to do something and file a claim and they didn't have any of the information of what previously happened. And it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
So do you mind if I dive in a little more to
I don't mind at all.
Story? So her middle son is going through boot camp, and then I guess he got the COVID vaccine, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And had an adverse reaction to the COVID vaccine, which has messed with his neurological pathways and stuff like that. And so he's been in Lima Company down. He's at Parris Island, if I remember correctly.
No,
correct?
He's actually at SOI. Okay. So he's over at Geiger.
Okay, so he's at Geiger. So he's with the med board people there, and the chain of command there. He's like she said, he's been there for over a year. They completely forgot.
He sat after he developed Bell's palsy. He sat there literally at SOI waiting with the rest of the holds for the fleet, but couldn't do anything. And he sat there for like 2 months. And then they finally decided they needed the bed, the rack, so they moved him at that point to Lima Company. And he sat there in Lima Company. He would go to BAS. He'd see, talk to the civilian doc, and they, kind of give him medication, and the medication messed him up really bad because that caused paranoia and toxicity. And then he just spiraled down, couldn't walk because he was so dizzy from the medication. He was on the max dosage, 3,600 milligrams of gabapentin a day for over a year, and he couldn't walk. He was so dizzy all the time. He'd have to have a buddy walk with him. And then initially they were doing hot plates for those who couldn't walk to chow. And he had a chit that basically said, he couldn't do formation, couldn't do any of that. He just couldn't stand for any length of time. And it just got so bad. Eventually, they ended up saying no more hot plates for anybody, forcing everybody to have to walk. And then they told my kid that he had to walk by himself because he was a liar and a faker. And it's like, I kid you not. It was a horrible experience for him. I mean, when he first got back, when he got back from his 10-day leave, he knew that he was going to be in holding for some time. Like the pipeline had just closed. They were just waiting for the next round of trainees, but it was going to be a while. And he was so bored. He took it upon himself to volunteer for everything. Like he would just say, I'm going to go clean the head. I mean, because he just needed something to occupy his mind. Go get her 100% of the time. And when this happened, he was dealing with it, but then it got bad with the COs. It was horrible. And I've never heard of such things happening. And I know, so Tab, you said that you had actually gotten out of the Marine Corps for your issues. How was it? Did you go through medical at all?
Funny story. No. So I 6 months postpartum, I went on an 8-mile hike with the Rucking Raiders taking photos. I was a public affairs in the Marine Corps. Ended up in the emergency room with multiple organs falling out of my body. It took months of fighting TRICARE to be seen by a specialist for them to say, yep, her organs are falling out of her body. And then it was getting closer to my end of service, my EAS, and they were doing my eval, which was supposed to determine that I need to go on a medical board. But the examiner, who was not a specialist, was nothing, did not do an internal exam on me, any of that, decided that it wasn't life or death. Plenty of women live with it, and the VA could fix me. So 2 days before my end of service, I was told that I was not being medically held. Good luck. My husband had actually gotten out of the Navy so I could stay in the Marine Corps. So I was the breadwinner of the family. At that time, I couldn't stand more than 10, 15 minutes, did not have full control of bowel movements, of really my organs, because they were falling out of my body, was not receiving any treatment. It triggered complex migraines, which imitate strokes. And so I put a congressional inquiry in, and my state senator decided to ignore it, and that wasn't his job. So it was, I say that I would not wish my transition out of the Marine Corps on anybody. And it led me to, it's part of the reason why I have a podcast now and essentially everything I do, because I didn't want anybody to experience what I had experienced.
And that's just it with what's going on. He would go to this civilian doc at BAS and they pump him with those medications, and they never would follow up with any other appointment. We didn't know at the time if he had a tumor. We knew nothing. And he just literally fell through the cracks for 4 months. And then they get this gunnery sergeant in, who, I don't know, for whatever reason, he had been there at one point, left, and comes back. And there's rumors, but I'm not going to go into any of that. But he is back for 3 days, and I get a call from my kid, and he is so distraught. And I'm like, what is going on? And he said, the gunnery sergeant says, now, mind you, I realize that you have multiple type of people at medical. You've got your legal holds, your mental holds, and you've got those who have actual medical conditions. But he says, the gunnery sergeant said, no one is allowed to be in their racks. Now, this is in medical. No one is allowed to be in their racks from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. No one can sit in any kind of a chair that is not a camp chair. And here we are again, don't have any clue as to what is going on with my kid. And he's forced to have to sit on the floor. And imagine trying to get up with the pressure in the head and such. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Also said nothing could be plugged in. So needless to say, there were, I don't know how many complaints filed against him. And apparently the battalion commander had talked to him and said, look, you've been gone and you're back for 3 days. And now all of a sudden we've got all these complaints and you're writing all the, 60 something people up and so on and so forth. She's like, I don't care what they do, so long as they show up for formation. So everything kind of goes back to normal for a week. I get a text and my kid says, Gunny's at it again. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, he shut the power off. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, there's no power. I was like, well, are you sure it's not a storm? He's like, no, there's power in the head and in the common areas, just none in the barracks, just for that company, so that nobody could plug anything in. I was like, that is beyond wrong. And then they turned around. And his first sergeant, the gunny, and the staff sergeant all started just ganging up on him. So he had his chit that said, what he could not do, et cetera, et cetera. And they're telling people they can't help him walk. He has to walk on his own. He's a liar. They literally got it on video multiple times where these guys are in his face to the point where he's backed up against a wall and like nose to nose, like he's back in boot, screaming at him, telling him he's a liar and a faker because physically you can't see anything wrong. But because he couldn't walk, he couldn't have anybody help him to get to chow. He sat in his rack. He has lost so much weight. He's probably down to 110 pounds. Breaks my heart as a mom. So I contacted my senators because I'd heard actually there was already one congressional investigation into this company. And so I contacted them and they said, well, he needs to actually fill out this form giving us permission to work on his behalf. So I sent it to him. And of course, the medication and everything else, it just, so it was like, fine. And then they call him in and they said, bring your medication. So he goes in with his medication. And the first sergeant, staff sergeant, gunny, they're all going, how much are you taking? Why are you taking it? Who is your doctor? Where are they located? I mean, totally violating every HIPAA law. So I contacted the IG for the Marine Corps. And I just talked to somebody and I said, look, they're the same people are asking to see his chit 20 times a day just for harassment, period, point blank. So they said, well, the Marine Corps actually changed their position on those, the chits. They're not allowed to ask to see them anymore. If they want information, they're supposed to go to the corpsman. And so the corpsman, they started changing how they wrote those chits to say, they list all the light duty stuff, right? And what they could and couldn't do. But at the bottom, it would say, if there's any questions, please contact the corpsman. And my kid gets stopped by the first sergeant and says, where's your chit? And he says, well, I have it. And he says, well, what does it say? Sir, it says, if you have any questions, contact the corpsman. Well, that did not go over well. Like, not at all.
Jesus.
So the next, I know. So the next thing you know, he pulls the chit out, hands it to him. Of course, he sees that. And at the very top of this chit, it says something along the lines of recommendations, medical recommendations, or something along those lines. And this first sergeant looks at it and he says, see here, it says recommendations. I don't have to follow this. Told him point blank, didn't have to follow it. And again, this is on video. Like other people, other Marines are there in medical, like videoing this because they all know just how bad he is getting. Just terrible. So we end up filing an IG. And it did take, so I filed one and he filed one. And the reason we did it that way is because every time he would call, I have a binder. I would write down the date, the time, who, if he said was near him at the time that it happened, all of it. Exactly what he said, because he couldn't remember from day to day because of the medication he was on.
That's
so
crazy.
Yeah. So that's how it went.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's crazy. I know when we talked, I mean, that was I guess about a month ago, and you told me that story and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because when I was in, I never heard of anything like that. But of course, I never went to like a medical platoon or anything like that. So I didn't, understood that something like that could happen. And then you told me the story about, the amount of medication that they got him on, and then what the gunny and the first sergeant was doing. And then, the company commander. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How has the Marine Corps got to that point where they're treating their Marines that way? It blows my mind.
Well, and that's the thing, because my oldest Marine, he's like, Mom, they've got checks and balances, and it'll correct itself. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait. And I'd wait, and my other kid would call, just sobbing in tears because he's devastated. And on top of all of that, he's not eating like he should. He's not getting any help from anybody. He ends up, finally gets an appointment for a civilian neurologist, and he gets the MRI, and he's supposed to follow up, and never heard from them when to follow up. Nothing. So months go by, and I keep telling him, you need to go in. You need to go in. You need to go in. If you have to go in every day to see him and figure out what's going on, you need to do this. And he's like, well, again, no motivation at this point. He's completely just broken. So finally, they set him up an appointment. And the day before, he gets a phone call from them and says, that neurologist has retired and closed their doors, so your appointment has been canceled. So then, I swear was the first sergeant and Gunny. I swear it is. No proof of this, but somebody made him an appointment with BAS, unbeknownst to him. Like he had, for that same day that he was supposed to have an appointment with the neurologist that closed their doors, and he didn't know anything about it. Nobody told him he had an appointment. Nobody came and got him for an appointment. Nothing. And next thing he knows, he's being told that they're putting him back to full duty and pushing him to the fleet.
What?
Exactly. Because he missed an appointment that somebody, which they couldn't even tell him who scheduled it, with BAS. They're pushing him back to the fleet because he didn't show up for the appointment. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was god awful. And so and I feel bad because I hate to hurt anybody's career over anything. I hate that. But in the same sense, you need to have some competent, compassionate people in the right places. And
yeah, I would agree with you. And they should be taking care of their Marines. And if they're pushing it to the limit where they got a Marine that said, hey, I'm hurt, and they're not really taking care of that Marine, then they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
That rank that's on their collar, they're not upholding that rank. And I'll tell you a story. So right before I joined the Marine Corps, about a year before I went in, my buddy from New Haven, Kentucky, went into the Marine Corps, and they were doing boxing in the Marine Corps. And he got hit in the head, and he told the drill instructor that he didn't feel good. Something was wrong. And the drill instructor told him to continue on. Well, the next hit in the head, he wound up dying. And that's when the Marine Corps stopped the Marine Corps boxing. And they try to say that he had problems before he joined the Marine Corps, and that's why he died. And for me, that right there was dereliction of duty on that drill instructor, because they should, as soon as he says, hey, something's wrong, they should have took him out. But that goes back to that macho mentality that, hey, suck it up, move on. And sometimes the suck it up, move on shouldn't be there. And it blows my mind that that's still going on 20 plus years later. And it just blows my mind.
It is. It's a bad place to be in. And what I'm learning is that they rotate in and out of that. So out of medical as far as overseeing that. But that IG took several months before it trickled down the pipeline. And the gunny ended up getting demoted down to a sergeant. And the first sergeant, nothing happened to him, surprisingly, but he now has rotated out, and there's a new first sergeant in. And my kid, he really wants to get to a place where he can move on his own. And so he's asked, of course, for physical PT, get him back moving. And on on his own. He asked for that. So he just started that, which was great. And he went out, they recommended a cane because the staff was telling him, nobody could help him or anything. So he's gotten a, yes, both SOIs are under that's my other kid.
That's the oldest Marine.
That's the oldest, yes. So it's been really bad, but he's now actually walking with a cane. He bought his own cane. He didn't have the military buy it because he didn't want to have to worry about giving it back. So he's bought his own cane. Although he's slow, he is feeling a lot more free and moving to chow on his own without somebody holding him up and or sneaking him hot plates, which a lot of them did. So he called when it happened, and he was you could just hear that uplift in his voice. Something as simple as that.
So let's hear from Dr. Teresa Larson.
Well, I was gonna say, and that's a lot. And I'm a mother too, and I have 2 little boys, and like just putting myself in your shoes, that's really hard to not be there with him and hear what's going on. And I'll say this, just like we were talking about the different types of care you get from rural to bigger hospitals, it's the same with units. The leadership can be so different. And there can be great units with great leaders. And clearly your son was not the medical battalion he was in, not great leader. Like an officer in charge should not let that happen. And they should be checking on what's going on. And the first sergeant should not let that happen. And that's a failure in leadership. And that is one of the problems I see, not just in the military, but also in the corporate sector and in just businesses. I mean, the turnover in larger organizations is crazy. Just people moving from, job to job, not feeling like they matter. So that's a failure. When I was listening to you, that's a total failure on leadership. And I know that the commandant doesn't want to see that, but just because you have, you're a captain or a major or have, brass, like doesn't make you a leader. Right. I mean, and in the military, that signifies you are technically, but a leader is more of an action. And I think that, just thinking out loud, like the ability to help people, help leaders, help officers, help senior enlisted become better leaders and how to take care of people is really important, because that's one thing that I'll say in my training as an officer. I was trained in my job pretty well. I mean, for the most part, right? And I knew that I could rely on my Marines to learn more about, I was engineering, but when it came down to taking care of my people, I didn't get any information on that. Right. And I had to figure that out, just because that's, I'm a pretty compassionate person, but I struggled with, I took care of everyone else but myself. And when I needed help, my leadership didn't know how to help me. Right? Everything was about our troop welfare and mission accomplishment, but I didn't, I was just good old butter bars. So, but I'm looking at, years and years later, I'm like, well, how can I solve this problem? Like and I know that it's, looking at the military as a whole, that's a big elephant to chew, but unit by unit, like you advocating for your son, I was just even thinking like requesting masks, right? Like doing things like that over and over until, I mean, he shouldn't lose his job, or he shouldn't get out of the Marine Corps, but at least he will feel more heard. And if one commander doesn't listen to him, then go to another, right? And sadly, that's what he may have to do. If he was in a completely different area of the country, maybe if he was on the East Coast versus the West Coast, I don't know where he is. He may get completely different. Yeah, if he was on the West Coast, he may get completely different care. I would call up, I almost want to say, like, go to Balboa Hospital. Let me get you there, help get you there, because I know some of the professionals there. But it is a leadership problem. And I'm really, like, that's where I focus a lot of my attention, is on humanizing leadership. I'm so tired of hearing leaders like just shit on, people. And
That's right, Al.
Yeah, it is very infuriating because it happens. Like I have a colleague he was a Mustang, so 10 years enlisted, 10 years officer, and he works for a large company, really hard worker, like very successful, and his immediate boss is just dumps on him, like does not appreciate him for who he is and what he brings to the table, and it infuriates me. He's leaving the company, but that's happening more and more. Like leaders need to learn how to be human, and the more healthy we are, the more aware we are of other people around us. And it just goes to show you how sick that unit from the leadership is. Like those people hurting your son are sick themselves. And that's really sad. And they're probably dumping on their families at home. Like, I love being out of the service now because I can go in and be like, yeah, you're a sick MFer. Like, let's figure it out. Just, I don't care. You can't fire me.
And that's the other I was going to share too. So they were forcing them then to go to chow, and every so often he'd have a buddy when he thought the first sergeant wasn't around and help him to chow. And one day here comes first sergeant and basically told him he wasn't allowed to be leaning on anybody. Nobody's supposed to be helping him. And why is he there if he can't stand on his own? He needs to go to BAS. So he's like, sir, I've been there and there's nothing they can do for me. I'm going, they know he's literally now going through the med board process. And he's like, I don't care. And wouldn't let him eat. Made him go to BAS. Told him he couldn't eat. Yeah. And so people literally were sneaking hot plates to him.
Yeah. That's just crazy.
So, but he's got now, as of last Friday, a new first sergeant, and he said he seems so far pretty chill, but not so chill to, I guess, the staff sergeant, because one of the issues is, for all of those that have medical appointments outside of base, which there's a lot, they end up having the duty sergeant or whoever it is drive them where they need to go. And they've been told on multiple occasions, if that van comes back late, which they know it's going to come back late for whatever reason, it's like, hey, you guys are just going to have to deal. It's going to be late, so you guys are going to miss some appointments. Well, apparently this guy said it in front of the new staff sergeant, and apparently that staff sergeant got chewed out because he's like, that is not acceptable. Like these people have appointments for a reason. You don't get to just go out there and, stay all night somewhere for whatever reason. That's not acceptable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Al, you've been awful quiet down there.
Oh. So I'm really pretty fucking frustrated, right? Because as a senior enlisted leader, like I did 22 years, right? I was an EA, but I spent most of my time as an operator with, Marine Corps units or whatever teams I was attached to. And it drives me insane because your son's not the only one that this is happening to, right? It's good that your story's out there and you're getting it out there because there's a million people in the service. And when I first came in, it was, it was frowned upon to go to medical because you did have a lot of people that were using that as a reason to not go train or to get out of whatever. I can't, right? But as a leader, you should know your people well enough or be able to identify when someone really is, seriously needing help or there's something really going on, right? When you're looking at the strength of a unit, you as a leader, I want my team to be healthy. So when we go down range, everybody's running at 100%, right? So, you want to identify, to withhold care or to treat somebody like they ain't shit because you think a certain way. Whoever that first sergeant is should get skull drug and have an ass whooping. Like somebody should drag him out to old school Connex box and put fucking hands on him. That's really my opinion. Like it's frustrating because your son's not the only one, right? My son was a Marine as well. Down in Jacksonville, North Carolina, right? And he had some of the same problems, right? Not on the medical side, but on the disciplinary side, right? From the, the military, we glorify the alcohol use and the partying and the fist fighting. And that's kind of like, that's what you are. You're a Marine. You're supposed to do that. But then when you do it, right, now all of a sudden it's a problem, right? The same thing with the medical situation. It's absolutely absurd from a leadership standpoint that some officer, whether it's a damn, like I know what Doc said, right? I'm a butter bar, but somebody should have stepped in and said, this is not how we operate. And if that's a problem for you, First Sergeant, pack your shit and get the hell up out of here, because we don't have any room in the service for people like you anymore, right? That old school mentality, it worked 20 years ago, and that was a different time and a different place. That doesn't work now, right? The truth of the matter is these kids coming into the service nowadays are a hell of a lot smarter than I was, right? They're more tech savvy. They're more in tune with what's going on, whether it's social media. Like they've got so much. They're a lot smarter on a whole different level than I was when I came in, right? I came in and I was a pipe hitting knuckle dragger, and that's what I did, right? But these kids, and it's almost frowned upon. It's almost like leadership says, this kid knows what he's doing, or he's smarter than me. I take issue with that, right? And it's an issue that they like can't help him to get food. Are you out of your freaking mind? I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And that's really not, it's sad because that's not even the Marine Corps that I kind of grew up in, right? Like you took care of your team, you took care of your people, you cared about when somebody was sick, like your brothers and sisters, like you lean on each other. Like if I'm hurt, somebody's got my back. Like to feel like no one cares.
But I think for that, it has to do with the fact that he never completed SOI. In fact, he never made it to SOI. And because, I mean, it was like he graduated boot, he was home for 10 days, boom, that he was done for. And they didn't know what to do with him other than come up with nicknames for him because half his face was drooping down. But
palsy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot of ego there. Like,
yeah.
So you still is a Marine. Like,
exactly. And you know, everybody complains about recruiters. No offense to any recruiters, but I hear these stories from veterans from my shows and stuff, but they talk about recruiters and how, once they recruit you and you sign on the dotted line, they're done with you. You never hear from them again. And I have to say a huge shout out to the Marine recruiters in Murfreesboro, Tennessee here, because they not only followed up with him after he graduated boot, they told him, you are now my brother, whether, no matter what. And on a monthly basis would be contacting him to see how he's doing. Called him over Christmas. I mean, it's amazing. They didn't have to do that at all.
I think that is a trend, because that's how like my recruiter was. Like all the recruiters in my office were like my first mentors in the Marine Corps. And then when I went on recruiting duty, I wasn't a recruiter. I was the marketing and public affairs Marine at the recruiting station. But that was very much the impression of most of the recruiters I interacted with, that like they were so proud that they were bringing the next generation of Marines in. And we really didn't hear as many horror stories as I think that you hear, other places. Not saying that they don't exist by any means, but I do think it's one of those where we don't hear the positives as much as we hear the negatives.
And the positives need to be put out there.
Yeah. So I finished up. So I left combat units like in 2009, 10 timeframe. And I had medical issues from combat tours, like, take some more Motrin, change your running shoes, right? I'm having a broken back, didn't know it for years, right? Like, you'll be fine. I'm like, my feet are numb. They're like, I don't care. I'm like, I'll suck it up, right? But I ended up going into recruiting towards the back half of my career and ended up switching my
8412.
Right. I changed
you were 8412.
Yeah, I changed my rate and actually went career recruiter, and I ran recruiting commands. And recruiting's come a long way as far as like you said, for your son, the recruiters are reaching out. They've put a bunch of things in place. Like my recruiter, like I met him and like I seen him when I was going to boot camp. Now things have changed a ton in recruiting, right? And I covered everything from Asheville, North Carolina, down to Augusta, Georgia. So,
that was my AO.
Yeah, no, we've talked. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we were probably competing.
Look at that.
Yeah, we were probably competition, right? We were trying to get the numbers right. But my heart does go out to your son, because I don't care what schools he finished or didn't go to. He raised his right hand. He swore to defend. He puts on a uniform every day. That should be only shit that matters. All that other stuff is is minute when it comes to health and safety of a Marine or a sailor or an airman. Like that's what should matter.
Yeah.
Right? The strength of the total strength of your unit. You got people down, then your unit's not 100%. So it's absolutely absurd. I wish I knew who that first sergeant was, because we can take a little trip. I got shovels, Ty. Let's go, bro.
Hell yeah, let's go.
That's what
Well,
I
I'll
was
tell
about
you,
to say.
my
I
oldest.
want a name so that I can find this person and talk some sense into them, because just like our
We've
hero,
got a name.
I came from
We've
deploying
got a
7 times out
location.
of Fort Campbell.
Oh wait,
And this is
we have Mr. Officer Pitts here. We probably better not say
Nah,
that.
hey, Pitts.
All I'm gonna say is it smells like excessive leather in here, and I think
Hey, Pitts is one of us. You know, I'm a graduate of 03 Fallujah, right? I'm a grad. Like, hey, we do things a whole lot differently. It's really, really sad. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's sad that his upper chain above that person allowed this to happen, right? I mean, it's crazy.
That's the thing, is it's a fault in leadership, and that is what we have to change by telling these stories. And I'll just say this, because I do have to go here soon, because I have little ones to put to bed. But somehow for your son and anyone here who's experienced trauma, I mean, we all have to a degree. That's just part of being a human. But is how, seeking mental health help is a sign of strength, not a weakness. I learned that. I thought it was a weakness, and I didn't speak up for a long time, but it's absolutely not. And for him being able to turn this event, this injustice, if you will, pain that he's experiencing, into a passion for him. So how can he make this part of his life moving forward and advocating for people helping people that was in his position, because that's how you can kind of turn that trauma into something that really helps people. And it's still trauma, but the story is now changed. It's become a power, a passion. I'm not really saying it eloquently here, but it doesn't really matter. Just the point is like his pain, so it doesn't keep festering for him.
Right.
He can turn that into something that he goes out and now helps people. He changes the leadership in the Marine Corps, because it can happen little by little. Like little by little, I'm working with different unit leaders who get it. And I'm like, we need to infuse more of this to get more past performance with helping leadership of military units, bureaus, companies. And there are some people that obviously don't get it, but I think that will really help too. How can we turn that trauma into growth, like grow from it?
Right.
Not grow from it isn't the right word. Just turn it into a passion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for him, it's really great that he recognizes what's happening and that he has the support system to help get him through it. What bothers me is how many of them are sitting there that don't have that support system.
Yeah.
And have nobody to lean on. When he first got there, one of his rack mates had been there for 3 years with a TBI.
That should never happen.
No.
It shouldn't. But what I know, this is what I was told. Now, you, Dr. Larson, may be able to clarify this a little bit better. Maybe not. I don't know. Is that when it comes to a med board, at least for the Marine Corps, that there is only like 6 doctors in DC that actually review the end result documentation, and that's why it's taking so long?
I don't know, but I could find out. I could.
To me, that would be great information to be able to pass along to others, I think.
I can absolutely find that out. Yeah. I don't know.
So like med boards, a lot of med board stuff is going to be based on severity of condition. So it's a little different, right? So some med boards are super fast. I've known guys and gals that have been med boarded and they are out in a 6-month time frame. So when they were originally asking, so with my situation, right, I broke my back fast roping. I got a parts fracture in my L5 essentially, and my they went out and they were trying to med board me. Right, I was fighting it. Like I don't want it. Like, hey, I'm like 17 years in. Like I'm trying to get to that retirement check. Let's not. So I ended up fighting it and ended up staying in recruiting, which helped because I was non-deployable then, so it didn't matter. But it depends on severity too, right? Because it is a bureaucracy, right? It's really political. So they have to pretty much dot every I and cross every T to ensure, right? And it's sad that they do that because for one, they don't want to be held liable at the end, right? So they want to make sure that they've done everything and they've, combed through every document to try to probably most likely to keep from being blamed down the road or a lawsuit down the road or whatever. So it is, a lot of it's based on severity, right? If you have some really serious, and a lot of times it's like the med board process works when it comes to like a friend of mine, she passed away finally, but she had cancer she was in, and they were med boarding her, but they ended up dragging her process out so that way she would be able to get the treatment she needed while still on active duty, even though her process should have been done, right? So a lot of times they're working for a good reason, right? They're trying to either resolve the issue or treat the issue prior to that service member separating. So a lot of the time frame could there definitely is a need for more doctors and more people in that process, but a lot of it's going to dictate and be based on severity of condition, right? They can kick me out. I got a broken back. You get out, right? Here's a nice wheelchair. But there is.
I'm gonna hold up real quick, Dr. Teresa Larson, thank you for coming on and spending this hour with us, and we'll catch you on the next trip.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be connecting.
Please do. I know people in high and low places, and I'm gonna end with this really funny story because it'll add some light to this situation a little bit. Not the medical situation, but just the conversation. So I didn't really need to go through recruiters because I knew I was going to go into NROTC, like do NROTC at Villanova, but I ended up, taking my new Blazer. It wasn't a new Blazer. It was my dad gave me the Blazer to drive one day, and I decided I was going to drive up to where the Marine Corps, Navy, Army, Air Force recruiting strip mall was in Seattle, Washington. And I didn't, but like the brake and the gas pedal were really close together. I was 18. I actually didn't want to drive. I was like, I don't want to drive. Too much traffic. But my dad was like, no, you're driving. So I decided I'm going to go visit all these recruiters. I'm just going to see if the Marine Corps really is it for me, or if I want to do another service. And so I pull up to the strip mall, and I thought I was pressing the brake, but I pressed the gas, and I ran into the strip mall. Like I literally ran into the building with my Blazer. Yeah. And everybody, the Army guy, the Air Force guy, the Marine Corps, the Navy run out of the building, and they're like,
what the hell?
And I was like, yeah, I'm here to talk to the Marine Corps.
Hey, Doc, what year was that, Doc? What year did you do that?
That was 1998.
Okay, cool. I was like, if it was post 2000, we probably thought like,
I was about to say that because we had
Dex
so
already
many
nailed
active
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had so many active shooters while I was on recruiting duty.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you probably have Dr. Lawson have recruiters hiding in the bathroom under their desk.
Yeah, well,
doing shelter in place drills. You messed everybody up that day.
That was my
Wow.
Maybe I had one other small accident since then, but that was like a pretty epic experience for everyone. And it was just funny to have all of the recruiters jump out. Obviously, I was like, beyond myself. I was scared. I was pissed. I was like, oh my God, what happened? I pressed the gas pedal instead of the brake.
We thought you was a V-bed. We was ready. Hey, we ready to go. Put some suppressive fire down. Contact front. We was ready.
All I have to say is I'm human. Shit happens, and that makes for a really good story.
Wait,
but
did you get recruited out of that same?
No. Well, okay. Yes, I did work with the recruiter out of that same strip mall. He just helped me with my paperwork. I don't know if I really needed him to do ROTC, but I wanted to work with the recruiter to help me with paperwork.
We need those numbers. We needed that number. We needed you.
Yeah, I just liked hanging out with you guys.
Imagine the number of people though that came to watch that they probably ended up recruiting too, so their numbers went up.
I was, oh my God. It was like one of those moments I look back and like, yeah, all right. Well, shit happens. I'm human.
Yes, indeed.
So, all right. Well, I hope that makes you all laugh and enjoy the rest of your conversation.
Well, thank you for jumping on.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
So, Carol Lee, your son wants to jump on the podcast here.
I'm in trouble now.
And
This would be my oldest.
So, Dexter Pitts, how are you, sir?
Man, I am busy. Got a lot going on. Having had some issues with the TBI, anxiety, and stress the last couple of days, man. But it's slowly kind of starting to level out and even out a bit, man. I need a vacation, brother. That's what that is.
Well, you got my number. If you ever need to talk, you can call me anytime. I'm just right down the road from you.
Well,
That's
Dex,
right.
come on down to Florida, bro. I got you. The weather's getting warm. Come on down. You need a vacation? Let's go. I'm
Man,
a couple minutes from
I
the
would,
beach,
man.
bro.
But
Let's
last time I went
do
to
it.
Florida, we won a free vacation to Orlando, and it was the worst free vacation I ever went on. Got sick. It was just horrible.
I'm not over there. I'm in L.A., Lower Alabama. I'm in the Panhandle of Florida. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm down here on the other. I'm on the other side of the state.
Are you all about Destin?
I am. I'm about. I was in Destin this weekend. We went just for the day. I'm about.
You weren't around for that acorn shooting, were you?
No. I mean, no. But I heard it. That's all. It's always Florida, bro. My poor state.
Florida man, baby.
Yeah, come on. I'm close to Navarre. I'm in Milton, Florida, right near Navarre Beach. So yeah, why has it always got to be this state? Come on. There's
Florida
meth addicts
man,
and crackheads everywhere, but why is it always my state?
It's like that picture I sent you out with a stripper pole on the sign in Florida.
On the back of somebody's truck. Come on. Why? What do we gotta do
God
better,
bless Florida,
people.
man.
We gotta do better out here.
I think all the weirdos are in Florida.
They're here. Like they Hey, Dr. Lawson had me dying because this weekend my wife, I almost killed my wife and daughter. So I told Ty and them I found a dog. So long story short, there's this big giant dog in this kennel beside me that's normally not in my office. My son calls and like, there's a dog. He works at the river in the state park. So we show up just to bring some food. I open my truck door and this dog jumps in. I don't know this dog and it's big. So I'm like, well, I guess it's going home with us and we'll take it to the vet tomorrow and see whose dog it is, see if it's been microchipped the whole night. I get it home. Super cool, super chill. It was somebody's dog. It sits, it shakes, it lays down. It's kennel trained. His house broke. So I'm like, it's somebody's dog. But it ended up being somebody dumped this dog, right? But when I got home, this dog was going crazy in my truck. I'm like, oh, you ain't gonna. There's two things you don't mess with: my guns in my truck, right? Or my daughter. Like three things. Okay, my sons, I don't care about. Like they'll be okay. But so he's going crazy, and I'm like, Dex, my brain is my TBI, everything's going crazy all of a sudden. Now I'm stressed, I'm freaking out, and I jump out the truck in the driveway before I put it in park. So my wife and daughter are in the back seat, and I'm out the truck, and she's yelling, and I look over, and my truck's just steady cruising up. My garage is shut, and I'm like, I'm short. I'm not a tall guy. My truck's a little taller than for me. So I dive into my truck and slam on the brake, thank God, right before it hits the garage. But yeah, we all do crazy stuff when it comes to stressful situations.
If we're telling embarrassing stories about that, I actually did that this summer in my police car. Went to work early. It was hot and it was in the summer. I was like, no, I'm gonna go to Baskin Robbins real quick before roll call. I sit in the car, I talk to my wife, and I could have swore I put my car in park. Man, I come out and I'm looking around like, oh my God, somebody just stole my cop car. But I was panicking and I'm like, oh my God. And they always tell us, make sure you cut your car off. And I'm like, smart ass. And I was like, I ain't gonna cut my car off. It's hot, man. And I'm looking around and I see it. My car reversed, cruised across the parking lot and struck a lady's car at a coffee shop. I was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. But the lady was the nicest, sweetest lady. No,
did you get
I
a
got
nickname?
plenty of nicknames. No, I got plenty of nicknames already.
See,
Plenty of nicknames.
Since we're telling these stories, I almost didn't get to go to boot camp because I drove a Rodeo Isuzu 5-speed, and we had to bypass it jump started, right? And my friend tried to start it without putting the clutch in, and it smashed into a gas station. And I'm from a small town. And so the gas station calls, the police, and the sheriff comes with the dog. And of course, I'm related to him. And the
dog or the sheriff?
The dog.
Hey, you a devil dog? I mean, maybe you a devil dog. I thought maybe he was kinfolk.
Like from the call, like if you got a call that it's like this vehicle just ran into the gas station, obviously, like there's some questions. Like, the dog should be there.
That's fair.
He walks out, pulls the dog out, and then looks, and he sees that it's me and my friend, and he just shakes his head and puts the dog back in, and it was just like, what is going on? And it turned into this whole debacle, with recruiting and being in the pool, where I had to like explain that like we were not drunk. I drive a stick shift, and my friend didn't know she needed to press the clutch.
You weren't in yet. You were still headed to boot camp.
Yeah, I was. I had to wait 5 months to enlist, and then was in the delayed entry program for 11 months because I was going to have public affairs. Public affairs was mine. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
That's okay, Tab. I spent, I don't know, $175 worth of gas in a government vehicle one time because I put the little cap in there so that it would pump all the station. And I seen all these people. We're in Mississippi. I see all these people running. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? What's up? And they're running to my Gov, and I'm like, man, that's odd. What's going on? And I come outside, and there's just gas where that thing didn't unclick and was just billowing. I got my barbecue sandwich biscuit in my hand, and had to call my commanding. I had to call my skipper and be like, hey, got bad news, sir. You're gonna get a bill for like $175 worth of gas. I know my vehicle's like a Chevy or whatever. I know it holds about 14 gallons. My apologies, sir. Was
the barbecue biscuit good though?
I was
our family's from Mississippi, baby, so I know all about it.
Dex, down south we had the best barbecue spots attached to gas, and I was in Meridian, Mississippi. Like nobody knows. I was in Meridian, so it was worth the $150 that I thought they was going to pay check.
That's awesome.
Well, Mr. Killen, welcome to the show, sir.
You get a mid bite.
I know, right? Mid-bite.
He timed that out on purpose.
I'm finishing up my Panda Express right now. I got a carb load for tomorrow.
No, you're good, man.
You got a what? Oh, carb load.
Yeah.
He said something about a car load, and I was like, I don't want to be in that car with you.
Mom, that's gross. There's kids present.
Yeah. Well, once you retire, Killen, you ain't going to be wanting to carb load no more, bro. I'm just going to promise you that, because you start carb loading, you start looking like dad bods. Trust me.
Hey, I'm all about it.
Service related.
I'm all about it. I'll run and gun with my belly button sticking out. I'm all about it.
There we go.
So where are you stationed at right now, Killen?
So I am currently stationed at the Northwest Annex in Chesapeake, Virginia, NSA Hampton Roads.
Nice.
And I'm currently with the Security Force Training Company out here in Virginia. I'm an instructor down here.
Nice. How long have you been doing that?
Excuse me. Since September of 2022.
Nice.
Coming up on my last 2 months right now. Yep.
Freedom.
Your last month, 2 months there, or in the Marine Corps General?
Both.
Nice.
I'll be finishing out my time here, and looking at moving in with my lovely wife down in Georgia, and closing this chapter and opening up a new one.
We're at in Georgia.
Actually, I noticed earlier you said from one direction all the way down to Augusta. I'm actually going to be moving down to Lincolnton.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Columbus. So
okay.
Yeah, very familiar with the area.
Yeah, and I honestly I love that town. It kind of reminds me of our hometown up in Montana, up in Roundup there, because it's so small. There's granted it does have 2 extra traffic lights compared to Roundup, but but it's so small. There's one grocery store. Because
it's probably a Piggly Wiggly. It's probably a pig.
It's actually a Bell's. I was surprised. I was surprised that it wasn't Winn-Dixie or an Ingalls. So yeah,
a Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah.
I got fired from Winn-Dixie when I was a teenager.
Hey, my son did too. Hey, and he got fired and went and joined the Marine Corps.
my My
Yeah.
mom told me, my black ass got fired for stealing fried chicken, man. Last thing I've ever done.
Damn,
Oh,
bro.
man.
Dog.
Damn, that's crazy. So, what's the atmosphere like at the training school? You know, compared to like say when Al and I and everybody else were in, and how you are in now. What's the atmosphere like?
It's weird, man. It's weird. That's the quick answer. But the thing is Mr. Al Hero there kind of hit the nail on the head. Like it's different times that we as leaders need to be aware of so that we can better facilitate the success of these young Marines. And it's a challenge that I'm constantly adjusting on every single day. But the thing is the Marines don't deserve anything less. So, because just the same as we did, you know, whenever we first joined, you know, they signed the dotted line for whatever reason. It doesn't matter the reason. The point is they signed the dotted line. They started out on those yellow footsteps and they got the EGA, just like the rest of us. But even with the rest of the branches, like regardless of reason, they chose a branch of service. They chose to write a blank check to their country in the amount of, including but not limited to their lives, just like we did. So, and the thing is as leaders, we have to now bridge the gap between all of this technology that they're now savvy with, that I sure as hell not. But the thing is we can easily bridge the gap between two different mindsets, between two different generations, and we can find a balance of instilling the toughness and the resilience that came so easy for us because it was all there was to understand, versus now where it seems like the all walks of life is now just that much wider of a variety of new Marine. So it's weird in a sense that, you know, and simply in a sense that it's just different. Because you know, back then when we were starting off, you know, the word hazing was not a thing. Somebody made it a thing. So that's our biggest thing right now. But no matter what word we come up with every 20 years for guys that are trying to get out of training, there is still a difference between guys that do want to train, that fall under unfortunate circumstances or whatever it is, and they still deserve nothing less. They deserve to be treated well. They deserve to be guided. They deserve to have mentorship. And so a lot of my, I'll say peer group, as far as my fellow sergeants, I'm older than all of them. So it's that's another weird dynamic, but, it's hard trying to, because peer on peer, correction and mentorship is the hardest, right?
Yeah.
Getting the rest of your boys that are around you to be on the same page as you and having the same amount of buy-in is another challenge in and of itself. And so, so there's a new, so the instructor course to get everybody like certified to be instructors nowadays is called something different as well. And it's designed around this new 21st century learning platform or way of facilitating classes versus just, you know, an instructor in front of everybody. They have a PowerPoint and you just sit and it's death by PowerPoint. They're trying to get away from that now. And there's a bunch of different delivery styles of these classes that we learn about. And I went to the course, and because it was different from what I'm used to, you know, first day I was like subconsciously abrasive to it, but the more I sat through it, it was just one of those things. It's like I had to tell myself, you know, times are changing. Let's see what these guys are talking about. And 2 weeks later, I have a new perspective on how we actually teach any young person in America now, because because essentially the way and honestly, going through this course just made our entire education system make so much more sense now, because the term that they used to describe education, at least the way education has been delivered, they used the term industrial style teaching. And the original intent was to put young people into the factory, starting way late 1800s to now, at least until recently. Our young people have been set up for failure, because as technology progressed, our way of teaching our young people did not. And that was a failure that could have been identified a long time ago. So honestly, it's not just the new generation. It's honestly 3, 4, 5 generations ago to where we've all been set up for failure, just solely based on the education system. And all the branches are suffering for it right now, as far as scrambling to figure out how to teach the newest generation of warfighter.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because the Marine Corps, the reason why the Marine Corps has been the best at recruiting is because marketing side of the house, the Marine Corps has had the same marketing firm essentially like for like 40 something years. It used to be called J. Walter Thompson. They have a different name. But every year when you would look at the Marine Corps commercials, they weren't for Marines. They were for the people you're trying to get in the Marine Corps. But the Marine Corps was so good at building the brand, but then teaching it or showing it in a way that those we were trying to recruit, it actually processed with them. When I was in recruiting in 2018, that generation we were trying to recruit in, they wanted to serve. They had a higher propensity to serve, but they viewed service different than the generation before. And so you have to know yourself, seek self-improvement, right? Adapt and do all those things. And that's where we're at, where in so many things, we're not doing that across the board in the military.
That generation tab, even that 2018 timeframe, right? The Marine Corps has always done a good job of selling the Marine Corps and not the job. But then even Correct. They've had to, I haven't been retired very long. I recently have retired, right? So I was, doing the recruiting thing and I ran the schoolhouse here in Pensacola for recruiting. And it is very different because the approach is different, right? When I joined, I didn't get me out of Columbus, Georgia. Where are we going? What are we doing? Right. It was a different world. Now these kids nowadays, you have to give them the with them, right? The what's in it for me, because kids are not like, I'm going to join because this recruiter said, be a Marine, the few, the proud. They're like, that shit sounds great on paper, but what's in it for me? Like what, education wise, career wise, different things. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The marketing strategy of the Marine Corps was always very well, because they were able, even my son joined the Marine Corps. So he tried to join the Navy because he wanted to do, I did special operations. That's what he wanted to do. Well, he didn't qualify for special operations. So I was like, well, retake the ASVAB. Well, the Marine was like, oh, don't worry about it. Join the Marine Corps. You can go. I think they've changed it. I don't know if it's still, it was MARSOC when I was in. Now I don't know what the hell it is. It's the Raiders or whatever now. But yeah. They convinced him, like, just, rifleman first. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter what your job is. Like, join them. And they convinced him, like, to join the Marine Corps. And he took I think he does like supply and logistics. And then he got to boot camp and stood in this long line to go through MARSOC qualifications, and they were like, oh, you don't qualify based on your ASVAB. And he was like, wait a minute. But he was so, once he, joined, he was like, I'm so gung ho that I want to be a Marine. This is what I want. I mean, his Marine came to the house, sat out. It was the way they approach things are way different, but like so to Killen's point, yeah, to Killen's point, the fact is this generation is so different, right? They are looking at things from I joined in 2000, right? I joined right before 9/11, and 9/11, I mean, I was on deployment, right? So I remember all these crazy things, and I wanted to serve because my father served and my grandfather served, and I had. But nowadays, kids are like, okay, what, they have so many options. Like, there's so many college programs now. There's so many that you really have to be able to relate from a leadership perspective to these new sailors and Marines and airmen and soldiers, because they are very intelligent. I was guilty of it too as a leader. Like I said, I recently retired. I was good at being like, y'all are soft. Y'all are a bunch of weak. Hope I don't have to lead none of y'all into combat because we're all dead. You might shoot me in the back. I don't like it was, but when you look at it from a higher level and a bigger point, you're like, man, these kids are so much smarter. Like they're going to develop a way where I don't have to storm the hill, right? I don't have to flank. I can like they're so much better at understanding technology or understanding. Right. They're more, it's going to sound bad because I'm not that guy, but they are more in tune with their feelings and the emotional side of whatever they're doing. And, you know, I give my sons crap about it, but the fact is that's not a bad thing because those people are going to grow into the sergeants and staff sergeants and gunnies and so forth and so on, or chief petty officers. And they're going to be able to connect with junior troops on a different level than I was able to as some gruffy old man who's like, you guys suck. Like, what was it?
Right.
Good morning. What's so damn good about it? Right. That's
Yeah.
good morning, Sergeant Major. Yeah, Sergeant Major. So damn good about it. Like, what?
But it's so needed because you look at like we also are as veterans are able to be so vocal and they're hearing the issues we had and the challenges we had and the things that we're saying, like, fix yourself, like this isn't okay. And they're seeing that and they're hearing that and they're seeing the implications of like living in black mold. That's why I have complex migraines, right? But that's not toxic. No. There's all of these things that they need to have those emotions and they need to know how to, because that's how I believe that rage drives change and anger and these emotions, like they make things happen.
I can rage. As a mom, right? I can rage.
But how do you have to know your emotions to utilize them, right?
I can't tell you how many times, like I've lost count of how many occasions where I've been so pissed off at work that I have to find something to do. Otherwise I'm going to lose my fucking mind. Right. Yeah. And it's funny, I actually posted and so because of that, I've, you know, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but, you know, I like to think I'm a pretty dependable guy as far as my work ethic and whatnot. And so and with that dependability, I have a reputation that I'm now proud of. But what I posted on Snapchat today was, it's funny how significantly busy I am that nobody has asked me if I'm on drugs yet. And so, because it's so true. Like I'm so always actively trying to find a job, because the other thing too, I mean, not to talk too much into tactics or anything, but one of the things that I'm in charge of teaching is interior tactics to these students. And so what does land the most as far as the things that they're able to retain the fastest over anything else that I teach them is initiative-based tactics. And the fact that you take away the concept of a quarterback or a hall boss when they're doing any kind of room clearing, because the idea of all of these new young individuals, regardless if they're a Marine or not, the idea of them making a difference in their own way lands a lot better than anything else. And that's what I've noticed. And so, as soon as I figured that out, it kind of ties in with the WIFM that Mr. Al Hero was talking about. Like, nowadays, the WIFM is so important because if you guys just look on TikTok, there is so many videos out there of what it's like for the workforce right now that Gen Z has entered the workforce. And it is hilarious because they're entering the workforce and they're quitting jobs left and right, but they're also getting new jobs left and right. Like, they'll go get a job. They're not afraid to get a job, but they're not going to stay at that job. If you don't give them a reason to stay at that job and make the shit paycheck that you're giving them, they will leave. Yeah. And that's where the story came from with McDonald's trying to force down that new no quitting policy. It's like, well, then maybe you should implement a no hiring policy because your paycheck sucks. That came from Gen Z last year, and it was so funny. And so honestly, like my hat's off to this new generation, because like I said,
Agreed.
you know, it ties into the original style of teaching to now, and how like you said, I would argue like 5-6 generations ago, we were set up for failure. And so,
and it's so cool that they don't fear some of the same things that I felt like we did. Like they're not scared about that. They're like, nah.
Yeah. And I think the other big consideration that a lot of people forget, that's so easy to forget nowadays, is the availability of information now. And it's so huge. Like they have the entire world at their fingertips. I still remember having to use the Dewey Decimal System to find the frickin' encyclopedia at the library. Like I still remember that. So, and like the thing is like I even tested it too. I was like, I asked my students, I was like, has anybody here heard of the Dewey Decimal System?
No.
And so, and a kid was confident. I had a kid raise his hand. He goes, "Sergeant, are you talking about the metric system?" I'm like, oh
sounds like a new age rapper. Sounds like somebody rap name. I know. I listen to all Dewey Decimal's new shit.
Hey, Sergeant, let me
I'd watch those videos.
Man, with so much technology being pushed out now, you know, we had this outage the other day with cell phones with AT&T, man, and people are starting to realize how dependent they are on technology. Are these guys being trained just as well without the technology to be able to operate in these harsh environments, minus all that stuff?
It's actually part of our training company SOP. They sign a statement of understanding when they first get here that during training hours, you are not allowed to have your phone. And so they leave that they lock it, or they just hide it really well. They can push through having it in their pocket, and as long as because like I'm not going to pat these kids down. Like that's not my job. I'm not going to spend 15-20 minutes out of my day patting down 80 Marines that are trying to learn something. You know, and my belligerent ass is gonna fake credit card swipes, you know, and then scare these kids because I'm weird like that. But anyway, anybody who's done EPW procedures knows what I'm talking about. So and the other fun, kind of a side note, I digress, but another fun thing I like to do with them, again, to try and instill that toughness through fear type thing, is because to this day, you still have kids trying to not wear SAPI plates in their flags. And I tell them, I'm just like, you know, it's okay. You know, I go the nice route. I'm just like, you know, y'all don't have to wear your SAPI plates, but just understand that I do SAPI checks with a K-bar, and you can watch their eyes go like, you know. But anyway, as far as the technology piece, it's not just a challenge for the young generation. It's been a challenge for the past 20 years, especially on the leadership side, because back in the day, you know, it was normal to assign a runner for the day. And that was how you passed info in between CPs, you know, to the barracks, whatever. And so I also remember those days, and
remember duty messengers. Like you had a duty messenger, like, hey, take this sticky note to, you know, building whatever, and you know, it was crazy. Yeah.
And that's where the ping pong jokes came. Where, you know, it's like, hey, new Marine, come here. All right, go tell First Sergeant Rogers over there that I said ping. Okay, like, what Sergeant? Just tell him that I said ping. All right, and then they relay with pong, and then it's ping pong. So so that, but that's another thing. Like with new technology, is a lot of the old humor is going out the window too, and so. Okay, I have to talk about this because it actually drove me nuts. I had a kid come to me after he went to BAS one morning, and he was like, it was like the early onslaught of pink eye, but his body was able to fight it off.
Somebody farted on his pillow.
I call it poop eye because that's what it is. And so anyway, but luckily it didn't turn into a full onslaught of like the green. Anyway,
right? Yeah.
So he comes up to me. He says, "Yeah, Corman said it's a viral infection and they can't help it." I'm just like, "Well, did you change your socks?" He's like, "Sergeant, why would I change my socks?" I was like, "No, they got rid of changing the socks." I'm telling you, I was so mad. I was like, the foreman did not tell you to change your socks. He goes, no, that doesn't make any sense, Sergeant. I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense. That's not the point.
You ruined it.
Damn it. No. So, but yeah, as far as the technology piece, that's going to continue to be a growing challenge for leaders. It's not just the students. It's not just the young Marines, like, because they don't have to do anything yet. All they have to do is be told what to do, during these first few years of their careers until they become team leaders. But I can't tell you how many times where we're from the sergeant level and above, at least at the company level, that word doesn't get passed, or guys don't get the word because one dude was not in a group chat, or this dude doesn't have this app downloaded, or this and this and that. And it's just like, we're all co-located with each other. That guy's right over there. And so it's just one of those things. Like, we have to remember that we have Chevrolets, and we have our Lamborghinis, and it's very important to actually use them. So, so I would argue that it's not just a new Marine thing. It's going to be a Marine Corps wide leadership problem more so. So
yeah.
Well, I got to drop, fellas. Love you guys. Dave,
All right, Al. Be good,
Al,
brother.
thank you.
No, thank you so much. And again, I'll be praying for your son. I hope everything works out. And if we can ever find out who that first sergeant is, I'm down to give him an old fashioned country ass one if need be. So
that one at the below you or on my screen, he knows him.
Yeah, I got you, bro. Well, God bless y'all. And if you need anything, I'm always here.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man.
yeah, boss. Be
Thank
safe.
you.
So we've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes.
This was good conversation, man. But I think it's time that we should that's probably a good story to end it on.
Yeah, I would agree.
There. I think this was a good night. I want to say thank you, Willis, again for having me. It's nice to finally be able to get this first one in for me and everybody else. It's nice meeting everybody, and I look forward to more of these in the near future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely. So Tab, Carol Lee, Killen, I'm gonna have to have you on my podcast, just because you're still in, and I want to get that perspective. Dexter, I know you're running the call right now, brother. Be safe on the beat tonight out there.
Yeah, man.
And so yeah, I want to thank everybody for jumping on. What's that? Did you say 2 more hours?
Brother.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
a couple
Well,
more.
you be safe out there.
Y'all take care.
Yes, sir. Be good, Dexter.
You too.
So
I'd love to have some of y'all on mine as well.
And then my wife is saying happy first birthday to Homefront Sit Rep. So today is 1 year.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Nice. Congratulations.
Candace brought a cake in for me, and we couldn't get the candles to go out. She had to go over there a couple times to put the candles because of trick candles.
Well, there was also 2 little mini red Solo cups, and that's what caught on fire. That's what we were watching. I was like,
Yeah.
because it's over here on the floor in front of us. I was like,
It'll be all right.
It's on fire.
Yeah, it's on fire. It's in the bunker. We're all right.
Yeah.
We're all right. And then I got some also exciting news. Today is officially my first day on Heroes Media Group. So I want to give a big shout out to Adam Bird up there. So you guys out there,
glad to welcome to the family.
well, thank you for having me. So you guys out there, if you haven't checked out Heroes Media Group, go to heroesmediagroup.com. You can go up there and see everything that Mr. Adam Bird does for veterans out there. Tab Bartley, Carol Lee, if you guys are interested in going onto his network, what Adam has put together is simply amazing. I think it might be something that y'all might want to look into, maybe. So Adam is amazing what he does, and I'm excited to be on his team. So, but yeah, it's time to wrap up, guys. And
Before you do, just because it is his 1 year for Homefront, and we were like Marine strong tonight,
we were.
you got to open your presents while you're live.
Do we
Welcome.
open my presents? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so
I want to
let's
see what color crayons you got.
So they got me this. It's I don't know what it is. I guess it's
Well, it's just marine colors.
marine colors. I love it.
Something edible?
It looks edible.
That's from your wife. Yeah, it's M&M's.
And then
That's number 1, right?
Yeah, it's a number
Lovely crayons.
So it's
Oh,
crowns.
That's good trash right there.
Yeah.
That's probably going to go right
Hey,
there.
it's a wall border. It needs to go around that flag. And then here's his bag.
Yeah.
Marines like
I
everything.
thought that was a coloring book at first. My bad.
No, it's a
Rainbows
bag.
and unicorns.
That's awesome.
Okay, so Killen, I'm gonna need your address because there's 3 boxes there.
Well, you have to see the different kinds.
I'm gonna say this right because I'm real particular about my crayons. So I'm actually on a diet, and so I've kind of limited myself to just the white ones because they're gluten free. So
Nice.
you know,
Ones.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
look, so there's confetti crayons now.
oh man,
Wow.
There's pastel,
Grape.
gold and bright.
Oh my
You
gosh.
have to have your regular.
the bright ones look vegan. I'll be honest.
Yeah. And then, alphabet stickers. Alphabet stickers because
Wow.
I'm a Marine. I
Oh,
don't know how to
We need you to learn.
read and write.
We don't want to. You can't eat all of these at once either.
Oh, here we go. Easy grip crowns.
Wow.
Oh my Lord. And then here's a button. It's my birthday. And what's this? Oh my Lord. It's pink and glittery, and it says "sipping like it's my birthday." Oh,
Sparkly unicorns and
oh
crayons.
my
Like it was
God.
perfect.
Wow.
oh my
Happy
Lord.
birthday, Willis.
Well, thank you.
Yes. Congrats.
That's some good trash right there.
Yes,
Wow.
it
He has
is.
spent an entire year helping so many people and spreading so much information and so much news. And I've been proud to sit by you a few times and be included in that and watch what you do. You've done a lot.
Well, thank you,
Well
and
deserved. Well deserved.
thank you
Mhm.
very much. And like I say, when I do my podcast, it's always about reaching that one veteran. If I reach one veteran today, that veteran's going to turn around and help somebody tomorrow. And like tonight, sharing the story of Carol Lee's youngest son and what he's going through. Maybe that'll reach out and help somebody. God, you make enough noise.
It's the chair.
So if that helps one veteran, then we did our job today. So I want to thank Tab, Carol Lee, Killen, and Mr. Adam Bird, who's going to wrap us up here. I want to thank you guys for coming on, and then Al and Ty and Matt and Dexter for jumping on as well. I can't wait for next month, which will be on the 27th, I believe. The 27th of March will be our next tip of the spear, and that will be hosted probably by Triple Threat Vets, and hopefully we can have everybody back on again. So
Yeah. Thank you very much for the invite and appreciate everybody's time tonight.
Have a good night,
And
everybody.
have a good
You
night.
too.
Adam's gonna play us
Good to
out.
meet everybody.
Good to meet you, sir.
Here we go.